Hello, everybody, and welcome to the trial edition of John and Athena Talk About Stuff. And today, I don't know, I mean, that sounds like a good thing to call our mini little podcast. What do you think?
It does. I agree. I actually like that.
Okay, so in this first edition of John and Athena Talk About Stuff, we are going to talk about a movie that we have both finally seen. She saw it a couple of weeks ago, and then I finally just saw it a couple days ago, which is Deadpool 2.
The Reckoning.
The Reckoning. Deadpool 2 Electric Boogaloo. Now, you remember the first Deadpool, right? I mean, what were your thoughts when you saw the very first one?
Honestly, thinking about it, I didn't like the first one that much plot-wise. I mean, I love the humor and the acting and everything, but I'm not a huge fan of, like, the origin story about it, you know?
Why don't you like origin stories?
I think they're lacking in like exciting plot because I mean the plot is just like how he became Deadpool pretty much,
right?
And then so that takes up like a lot of the movie is like how he became Deadpool, and then after that he like saved his girlfriend, and that's all there is to it. So it's very basic.
So yeah, I mean, it's basically what you're saying. The problem with origin stories is that it spends so much time detailing something you already know, that he's like the superhero, that when you finally get around to the actual story, it's only like the last third of a movie.
Yeah, and it's never really brings to the table what I think it should in a superhero movie.
Yeah, what do you think it should bring to the table?
Something more exciting. I don't know. I just don't think they're like, I don't think they're like thought out enough. Like, or like exciting enough. Like the movie was plenty actiony,
sure,
for sure. Like there are tons of fight scenes, which was great, but like not, if you like analyze the plot, it's not that exciting.
Right. So Deadpool 2 then, because they've already gotten the origin story dealt with and done with, and you don't have to think about it anymore, was better for you plot wise?
Yeah, I actually liked Deadpool 2 so much better than the first one. Like on like for a lot of different reasons.
Okay, name one.
You know what?
You know, the thing
harder
is,
than I thought it would be.
Yeah, no, it is. This is harder than I thought you thought it would be. But this is also because I am sitting here like interviewing you rather than, you know, it going back and forth.
We'll get there.
But we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah.
But you know, I think that people are interested in hearing what you have to talk about stuff. But I mean, I'll throw in a little bit here. I mean,
yeah. What did you think about the first one?
Well, I liked the first one. I don't really mind origin stories because, as it turns out, with a lot of comic book things, I really not up on them. I mean, I can read the Wikipedia article on Deadpool or whatever, but honestly, I just don't care. You know, in the sense of, I'm not going to go and read the origin stories of every single like Marvel superhero or DC superhero out there. There's just too many of them, and who has the time? So when I get an origin story, they don't really bother me that much. I mean, it's kind of fun for me to see kind of how they're built. And in the case of Deadpool, I mean, obviously because it's not just talking about Deadpool himself, but it's also, as you say, aside from the plot, it's a deconstruction of what the superhero movies are at this point. I mean, it's a movie that only could have been made 10 years into the Marvel superhero universe, or, you know, or thinking about all the tropes of superhero stuff. You couldn't have had this back in 2008 before Iron Man came out, for example.
True. Yeah, you have to build up to Deadpool.
You have to build up to Deadpool. That's exactly right. And I think that's one of the reasons why it took so long for Deadpool to happen. I mean, there was the thing of the character of Deadpool showing up in that terrible Wolverine movie.
Oh, Wolverine Origins.
Another
origin story.
Origin story, which was
I actually like that one, kind of.
See, now I just think that one was terribly done. So I mean, you and I are clearly going to be at loggerheads on a lot of this stuff. But but I like origin stories just fine as long as they're humorous and so on and so forth. I have this theory about myself, which is that I am easy to entertain but hard to impress.
Oh, you know what? I kind of think I'm the same way. A
Right.
little bit, yeah.
Which means that, like, if you put on a movie, I can watch it and I can have a good time and stuff like that. But if you ask me, was that a good movie? And I'll be like, no, not really, but I was entertained anyway, which feels kind of weird because you feel like if you were entertained, it should have some inherent quality. But, you know, I like junk food too, so you tell me.
I mean, there can be good qualities to movies that aren't that good.
Right.
Like, maybe it was just like really funny, or maybe the camera work was like really good, but like overall, it wasn't that good.
Right.
You know? There's certain aspects that can be, entertaining.
Right. So for me, the first Deadpool I really enjoyed. I didn't mind the origin story. And then when we got to the second Deadpool, the one thing I will say about origin stories, and this feeds into Deadpool too, is that at least it always gives them something to do, right?
Yeah.
You know, you start off with ordinary guy, or in this case, ex-mercenary or whatever, gets cancer, becomes a superhero when put under stress and all that sort of stuff. So there's always something going on. And the problem with a lot of sequels that don't have that origin story aspect is they're like, okay, now we have all our, everything about this character. Now we actually have to put him in a plot. And that's kind of where they often fall down.
That is the hard part, yeah.
It is the hard part. So you liked the plotting of the Deadpool 2, where I was kind of about it.
Well, I thought it was really good because I don't know. I mean, I didn't actually like Russell as a character, and I mean, he was like the driving force of like the whole movie. Was like he was trying to save this kid or whatever.
Right.
But honestly, I kind of sided with Cable at first, like when Deadpool was like, let me talk to him, let me try and save him. I was like, bruh, come on. Like, he's obviously a bad guy. Like,
right.
And I didn't think there was like any saving him. I mean, I did because I knew that's where the movie was going to go. But in real life, if that ever happened, I would be like, yeah, there's definitely no like saving him.
You would have chucked Russell over the side.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, yes, he's irredeemable. Off we go.
Exactly. Like, I honestly thought Deadpool gave him way too many chances. And, like it took him sacrificing himself for Russell to be like, wow, maybe I shouldn't burn innocent people alive.
Right.
If that's what it takes, he wasn't that good of a person to begin with.
Well, and I think that is one of the things that bothered me a little bit about Deadpool 2 is the relationship between Deadpool and Russell. Right?
Yeah.
Russell, for everybody who's not seen Deadpool 2, obviously, why are you even listening? Because we're spoilering this for you back and forth. Spoilering it's a verb. It's a word. It's legitimate. I'm a writer. Okay, but we're spoiling it for you. And the thing is that, Russell is a kid with superpowers. He's not using them in a really good way. And
becomes a villain in the future. And this dude, Cable, obviously comes back in time
right.
to stop him violently.
Right. With guns and stuff. And the thing about it is that, but the thing is that really feels kind of rote to me, right? Just the whole idea of, we got to save this kid from going bad. And the reason he wants to save the kid from going bad is wrapped up in the fact that Vanessa, his girlfriend, just died and they were going to have a kid together, and so here was a kid that he wanted to save, and some way he could save the kid. Then it was
almost like saving Vanessa kind of.
Right, exactly, which brings up a whole nother thing which I'll get to in a minute, and I want your opinion about it. But the thing about it is it is going to sound terrible in the context of a R-rated superhero movie that's about fart humor and so on and so forth, but it didn't feel organic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it did feel kind of like out of character for Deadpool. But then again, I don't know, because there's a lot of points in the comics where he, like, saves suicidal teens. He's
sure.
like, bruh, don't do it,
Right.
So, I mean, he's not a bad person, but I feel like Deadpool would have been more realistic and kind of sided with Cable,
A little bit earlier.
Yeah. I don't know, but I think maybe the reason he did it was, selfish reasons, leading back to Vanessa and stuff.
Right.
Because he definitely didn't really care about the kid at first. In prison, he was like, go away.
Right.
And then Vanessa was like, the kid. And he was like, oh, duh, I gotta save the kid.
Right. And like I said, for me, at least, the plotting of that didn't feel particularly natural. There was enough going on that you could be amused no matter what, but plot wise, it wasn't great for me.
Right.
Now let me. Yeah, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's one thing that they did in the first movie that they did less of, but still did some of in the second movie that I am like definitely not a fan of, which is where they start out the movie with one scene and then he's like, to get to this scene we have to go back to the beginning, like 6 weeks ago or however long ago, right?
Right.
And then he does that thing where he's like, there, all caught up in both movies. And like, because the first one he's in the dumpster truck or whatever, and he's like, okay, you're caught up. And then in this one, it's right before he blows himself up. And I was like, just start out with the beginning scene of a movie. You don't have to like put this action scene first and then be like, all right, let's rewind.
That's a prologue. Hold on one second, because we got a phone call. And now we're back. That phone call has been dealt with, and this is part of the whole, we're doing this for the first time thing. Next time, we're definitely going to put the phone in the other room. So yeah.
Like the leading up to like...
The prologue.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's ridiculous how like they start, for the first Deadpool anyways, they start in like the middle of the movie and then go back to the beginning just to get to the middle of the movie again.
Right. Well, it's that whole thing of, it's that cliche, that there's a scene and then record scratch. Yep, yeah. That's me.
Freeze frame. You're probably wondering how I got in this situation.
Exactly. And I think that that's part of the Deadpool charm, is that it breaks the fourth wall all the time and it's talking to you and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, I definitely do like that aspect of it.
Right. But there are things that, having done it once, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing it again as opposed to trying something else?
Yeah, I just feel like movies should be, for the most part, linear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the opposite of that.
Right.
But the good news is, in the second one, it was a much shorter like lead up. It was like in the first 20 minutes.
Right.
Or, first 30 maybe.
Right.
But yeah.
So let me ask you this, because now I introduced you to the theory of, because it didn't sound like you had heard of this before, the concept of fridging. Right?
Yeah.
And for those of you out there who aren't aware what this is, fridging is the idea that you have a hero, and in order to motivate him or to make him feel bad or whatever, to get him going in the story, some tragedy has to befall him. And usually, and this is where Gail Simone, the comic book writer, calls it fridging, something horrible has to happen to their girlfriend. And this takes... this takes its name. Fridging takes its name from an issue of Green Lantern, where Green Lantern's girlfriend has literally been murdered and stuffed into her fridge, and he finds her there.
Are you serious?
I'm totally serious.
It's funny because Ryan Reynolds played Green Lantern.
Right.
And Deadpool.
Right.
It's really funny.
So there's some coincidence there, but not directly. But the thing is that for fridging happens a lot. It certainly happens a lot in movies. It happens a lot in TV. It happens in other places. And it happens so often that, in fact, it is a noted trope and people dislike it, up to the point where, it gets called out when it happens. And Catherine Valente wrote an entire book called The Refrigerator Monologues about characters who might have otherwise been fridged and their opinions about these things. So in Deadpool 2, there are two actual incidents of fridging, right?
What is that?
Yeah, so there's Vanessa.
Yeah.
Who is definitely fridged, even if she's not stuffed into a fridge. But then there's also Cable.
Oh, well, I feel like that's really different because they also killed his kid.
Right. Well, no, but that's the whole thing. It doesn't have to be your girlfriend.
The girlfriend, oh.
It can be. It's usually the thing of male protagonist or male antagonist motivated by death of a woman.
Right.
Right. The thing is that this is something that was super familiar to me because, I'm 30 years older than you and so on and so forth. But this is like literally your first time hearing about this concept, right?
Yeah.
And was this something that was an issue for you in terms of watching Deadpool 2 or other entertainment that you've watched?
No, I thought it was completely normal. I mean, I didn't think of it as any sort of like trope. It
Right.
just was a thing that happened. And I mean, Deadpool is a very self-motivated character, kills for money and does things, for his benefit. And so I feel like using his girlfriend's death as a motivator is one of the only things that would in fact motivate him to get revenge on someone.
Right.
So it makes sense that her death caused him to react like that, because there's very few things he like cares about. It would be different if it was like Superman and like Lois Lane gets killed and he fights someone, because like he fights people anyways, like he's a hero, so like every day he does that stuff. It wouldn't be any different if Lois died, but for Deadpool it is different.
Do you think it also makes a difference that you are, and I don't mean this like in any sort of judgmental way, do you think it makes a difference that you are 19 and you haven't seen like examples of fridging a lot, whereas a woman who is 35 or 40 has literally seen this happen all her life and is gotten hypersensitized to the idea of women characters dying to motivate men? Do you think that that makes a difference?
Yeah, I feel like they're probably tired of it by now. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's not like a huge deal because, like, I mean, I haven't seen it that much.
Right.
So it's not like a big issue or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really see a problem with it because, I mean, if somebody, killed someone I loved, I would do the exact same thing. It's a motivator for anybody. Like,
sure.
I don't see how it's, like, only applied to men. You know what I mean?
Right.
I definitely think fridging could be applied to anybody. Like, what would Lois do if Superman got fridged?
I don't know. I mean, and the answer, the answer I think to that is generally, issues of overall relationships in society, that women are much less likely to have stories where they are motivated by the deaths of others and so on and so forth. But I don't think, I mean, for me, it's less about putting you on the spot about how do you really feel about this, but just the fact that the concept of fridging, or the concept of killing off a woman character in order to, motivate the bad guy is one that I am so used to that as soon as Vanessa said, "Let's make a baby," I'm like, she's fucking doomed.
Dude, I literally knew it from like the first minute of the movie. And that's another thing that bothers me about starting out in a scene that's not the beginning scene, because it gives you spoilers for the movie you're like watching, because literally like it starts off with him in his apartment alone and sad music playing to pictures of Vanessa on the wall, and I was like, "Oh my god, Vanessa's dead." And then he blows himself up, and it's obvious that Vanessa died. So for that whole like first 30 minutes, I'm just waiting for Vanessa to die.
Right, and that wasn't fun for you.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, I think we're getting near the 20-minute rule, and I think it is a rule we should have these be like 20 minutes or less. So,
I feel like we haven't even like talked about anything though.
Oh my god!
I have so much more to say.
Well, we can come back to it at some other point, but I think 20 minutes is good for the moment. But
I want to talk about Domino and X-Force.
Yeah?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And Brad Pitt. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
here, quick, 30 seconds. Talk about Domino, X-Force, and Brad Pitt. Go!
Okay, Domino's power is literally so cool. Like, so awesome. And I feel bad for all of the rest of X-Force. I literally feel terrible for all of them. And it's stupid that Deadpool only went back and saved one of them and not all of them.
Right. Peter.
Yeah. Gary.
Chad.
And, yeah, and Brad Pitt was a surprise.
Yeah. No,
that's all I had to say about Brad Pitt.
So overall, having had this discussion of Deadpool 2, would you recommend Deadpool to others?
Yes, I think it's a really good movie. It's hilarious. Seriously, like, so funny. And there's a lot of really great characters, even if some of them die within, like, 5 minutes.
Right.
But, yeah, I think it's really good. And great fight scenes.
Right. So on a grading scale, A being, must see, F being, my God, I've wasted my time, what would you give it?
Like a B plus.
A B plus. I would give it a B minus, but it's still kind of a B. Like I said,
Yeah.
fun to.
We'll just call it a B.
We average it out to a B. So in conclusion, Deadpool 2, given a B by John and Athena. So that then takes us over the 20-minute part, minus the part that we are going to excise about the phone call. But so I think this was a good first attempt at this. So we will possibly do this again at least a couple more times before the end of the summer. Any final thoughts before we close up this podcast?
Bye, Yukio.
I don't even know what that means.
Yukio.
Yukio?
Yeah, like, hi, Wade. Hi, Yukio.
Oh, see, you paid much more attention than I did. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Take care. Take care.